Well, it's not only parts, it's equally people's homes, it is equally schools, it is the parks of the Westboro. Everything is testing to be residential standard. So I don't know why it couldn't be said that clearly. I don't know why, we're here arguing or suggesting one is being treated differently than another. The problem now leaves for lands with Blanche Park. And that is an undetermined, we just don't know where that goes just yet, because they are in the process of still doing deep soil bearings in Blanche Park. That's the extent that we can tell you. When I learned of this in June, we had your answers early September. And that's where we find ourselves. That's the story. Did I get that somewhat right, Wilbur? Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. Just real quick. Is it safe to assume for people from Westboro, when I live in, South Road lots from here, is it safe to assume the concentration levels were higher 20 years ago, 40 years ago than they are today?
That's beyond my ability. I'll leave it to him. I don't.
I didn't expect it.
And it's a question that we received. There are no technical tools to predict concentrations to the past.
Is it safe to assume? I'm not asking for an accurate prediction.
No, I know, and I cannot answer that question. We have evaluated that. The assumption with some chemicals such as petroleum that will be a decay rate over time. Some of the inorganics do not follow that type of decay rate. So with the inorganics, it's very difficult to understand variation. Of course, they're going to be subject to transport mechanisms, but I cannot give you, I'm very factual, I cannot give you an answer to that question. So I cannot assume that it will be higher. If it was a petroleum, looking at some of the kinetics that I'm very familiar with, I could give you a better answer to that, because I even know the type of kinetics that you have for different big tanks versus polynucleus, for example. But for the inorganics, the drivers, the lead, it's much more difficult.
They don't wash out of the soil?
There is, but they are so heavily absorbed to the soil. You can see that after 30, 40, 50 years, you still have a specific concentration. Particularly, remember something, these lead results are very consistent. You need to see the actual solid waste layer. When we step within centimeters of that layer, we're finding clean results. It's very important to keep that fact. And going back to the 40 samples that we collected, I just checked with our leader of the sampling team. Not a single sample collected of the 40 locations, not a single location except Blanche, our sampling team did not see solid waste. Blanche Park, we step out of the solid waste, the lead results are reduced by orders of magnitude. Much lower concentration within just stepping out. So that's an important to consider. So the 40 samples are best effort to understand an area-wide potential impact on atmospheric deposition. The results do not show when atmospheric deposition is consistent with magnetic antibackground. Blanche Park is solid waste issue.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Mayor. I read through some of your correspondence and other I appreciate that. However, this is a quick and direct question. In the first two rounds of testing that was done on the incinerator site, first one by Cherokee and second by SCS, both rounds of testing included what are called layer matter hydrocarbons in the testing. One came back with high layers, which was benzoate. My question is, in this more comprehensive testing, the 40 different now testing from radius, will those same sorts of hydrocarbons be tested for atmospheric pressure variance? Right, that's it.
Thank you. I was expecting that question, so thank you. We can do additional analysis, but I'm going to share with you. I spent the morning actually looking at, we have one of our best cases with more than 100 samples where we did an analysis of lead, barium, arsenic, polynucleus, because in this area I do look at a lot of ratios. And I know I saw your references, so thank you, because you have done a great job of providing all the requirements from the department. are two cross-sections that are a tad inconsistent. But if you go to the eastern boundary and the southeast portion, you saw those 0.1s, 0.2s that are very low compared to what you would expect. And I have always been puzzled by some of the lithology logs for Fire Training Center because the data doesn't support some of those descriptions because you would expect the lead to be much higher if some of those descriptions were correct. So to answer more specific to your question, we have more data, we're analyzing more data, but what I can share for you, we have one part that we did 100 salt samples in a grid approach. And I compared the polynuclears versus lead and barium, and lead and barium by far are much better indicators. And actually barium and lead specifically drove the health consultation opinion for that part. Polynuclear was not even considered an issue. And that was an extensive data. Just to give you an idea, the concentrations of the lead were in the 90,000 milligrams per kilogram. And polynuclears was not an issue. So, just to share with you.
And I understand that the causal connection is important, but as far as the words testing, what is important, I think, are the health implications of these polyaromatic hydrocarbons. So I think at the very least, we'd like to see that sort of testing at the special interest sites.
Good evening, I'm Alice Bravo, Assistant City Manager. I just wanted to clarify for the question that you asked recently in simple terms, what the numbers mean, and Mr. Yorga, you can correct me if I say anything wrong, but basically the most stringent criteria is the criteria established for residential properties because people spend so much time there and the exposure level is so great. So the samples we took at Armbruster Park are all well below the residential criteria, so it would be considered safe for residential use, with the exception of arsenic, which is just naturally occurring in South Florida. The same is true for the sample taking at the barnyard. Again, all the levels tested are way below the residential criteria except for arsenic. The same for Peacock Park, Carver Elementary, Coral Gables Senior High, and Tucker Elementary. So in simple terms, this table shows you that there's not anything of concern at these properties, but the naturally occurring arsenic.
Thank you. And one point that I want to take advantage of this slide. We wanted to share data with you. I don't think any of you will grant me an extension if I said, I would like to meet with you when I have those pending results. None of you will grant me that. So I came with the data process within hours of this meeting. So I did my very best. However, as I said, the comfort that we have is that all the key indicators that we use for the term sample results allow us to provide a valuable input to you, and we will continue to work. And again, I just want to conclude. Thank you. I was very appreciative of all your questions.